Hello viewers, I'm your host Pratiksha Mishra with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show. International trade is vital for global economic growth, fostering cooperation and resource sharing. India and Iran have bolstered their trade ties by securing a decade-long contract to develop and manage the Chabahar port. The port's development is crucial for enhancing regional connectivity and diversifying trade. We bring you this report.
Located on the Gulf of Oman coast in southeastern Iran, Chabahar port holds immense strategic significance for India, providing a crucial gateway to Central Asia. It facilitates India's access to Afghanistan and beyond, fostering regional connectivity and trade routes. By establishing a sea-land route, it reduces dependence on Pakistan for trade with Afghanistan and Central Asia, ensuring greater security and flexibility. On May 13th, New Delhi signed a decade-long contract with Tehran to develop and operate the Chabahar port. The agreement brokered between Indian Ports Global Limited and Iran's Port and Maritime Organization involves an investment of $120 million from IPGL, complemented by an additional $250 million in financing, bringing the contract's value to $370 million. Situated along Iran's southeastern coast on the Gulf of Oman, Chabahar port is constructed by India.
Under Modi's leadership, the momentous agreement that began on 23rd of May 2016 is culminating today in a long-term contract, symbolizing the enduring trust and deepening partnership between India and Iran.
The development of Chabahar port aligns with India's strategic interests in the region, enhancing its connectivity and trade prospects. Till date, a total of 2.5 million tons of wheat and 2,000 tons of pulses have been shipped from India to Afghanistan through Chabahar port. Moreover, in 2021, India provided Iran with 40,000 liters of eco-friendly pesticide, specifically malathion, to combat the locust threat facilitated through the port. On the other hand, Iran, with the majority of its population situated in the western region, seeks to address the relative underdevelopment of its eastern part. To achieve this, Iran is focusing on enhancing infrastructure around Chabahar port, including the establishment of a free trade zone and the construction of road and rail connections linking Chabahar to Central Asia. New Delhi has stated that both parties will ensure proper supervision of the construction of Chabahar port through effective monitoring mechanisms.
Minister Rajapals and I will closely monitor the development of the port and continue to remain in contact with each other as we jointly benefit from the enormous potential of Chabahar port for enhancing regional connectivity and prosperity.
The Chabahar port has attracted interest and concern from the United States. Following the deal, the US cautioned that any nation engaging in business with Iran faces the possibility of sanctions. In response to this, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar emphasized the broader regional advantages of the project, urging a consideration of its comprehensive impact rather than a narrow viewpoint.
I did see some remarks which were made, but I think it's a question of, communicating and convincing and, getting people to understand that this is actually for everybody's benefit. I don't think people should take a narrow view of it, and they have not done so in the past. So if you look at even US's own attitude to Chabahar in the past, the US has been appreciative of the fact that Chabahar has a larger relevance. So, we will work at it.
While historically critical of Iran's nuclear activities, Washington had previously acknowledged the significance of the Chabahar port development. The US perceived it as a potential check on China's expanding influence in the area, notably through its involvement in Pakistan's Gwadar port within the framework of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor.
Moving on. Recent protests in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir sparked significant concern and attention for Islamabad. The unrest began with clashes between protesters and security forces, leading to casualties and injuries. The protesters expressing grievances over economic hardships, particularly soaring inflation and frequent power outages, took to the streets demanding relief measures and great autonomy. A report.
The visuals depict thousands gathering for the funeral prayers of those killed in clashes in Muzaffarabad in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. According to reports, 3 protesters lost their lives on May 13th and several suffered injuries when paramilitary troops fired upon them. Additionally, a police official was killed during the clashes. Videos circulating on social media depicted scenes of paramilitary vehicles being set on fire along the Muzaffarabad-Brarkot road. Another video showed a group of protesters chanting Azadi slogans, expressing demands for freedom amidst the unrest. The protest march was called off by demonstrators a day after Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif sanctioned an $86 million grant to address certain demands, including subsidies on flour and electricity prices. However, protesters and activists in POJK opined that such measures may not resolve the deeper political grievances fueling the unrest in the region.
The current unrest in Pakistani-occupied Jammu Kashmir is not a one-off thing. We have been protesting for years, for decades actually, that our situation in POJK needs attention. I have been making appeal after appeal after appeal to the world that POJK is facing a humanitarian crisis. But no one has paid any attention to that. People have turned their face the other way. And then this is what happens when you ignore a problem for a very long time.
The violence in POJK erupted on May 9th when a clash between police and residents of Dadayal resulted in several injuries. The confrontation stemmed from protests against soaring inflation and frequent power outages, with demonstrators originally planning for a May 11th rally. However, following the clash, authorities imposed Section 144, banning all activities in the area. In a retaliatory move, protesters advanced their demonstration to May 10th. Prior warnings to authorities against violence had been issued by the protesters. Since the violent clash, protests and long marches were being witnessed across several areas of POJK. The effects of the strike was evident throughout Muzaffarabad and other areas, with businesses closed, banks shuttered, and streets devoid of traffic and vendors. Telecommunication and internet services were suspended in various parts of POJK, including Bhimbar and Bagh.
पाकिस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री को अब ये साफ दिख रहा है कि वक्त आ गया है कि अब पीओके उसके हाथ से गया। ये भय है। आप पीओके ये लोग कितना दुराचारी है, अधर्मी है, कितना अन्याय कर रहा है पीओके के साथ, वो मैं बताना चाहता हूँ। पाकिस्तान में जहाँ भी बिजली जा रहा है उसका स्रोत क्या है? पावर सप्लाई कहाँ से हो रहा है? पानी कहाँ से आ रहा है? पीओके से। और वही चीज़ जो देने वाला है उसको हायर रेट पे बिजली चार्ज होता है। पूरा दुर्व्यवहार होता है, अन्याय होता है। पानी लो पीओके से, पूरा लोग ऐश करो, वहाँ पर फिर सब्सिडी दो और पीओके के लोगों को हाई रेट पे बिजली दो। तो ये तो आसानी है, ये तो नहीं चलेगा।
Last year, a similar shutdown strike occurred, echoing demands for fair electricity pricing aligned with the production costs of hydropower in POJK. Once again, despite prior negotiations and a subsequent government notification in February, grievances persisted, leading to the decision to stage a long march in protest against unmet commitments. The situation in POJK underscores the broader tensions and complexities within the region's socio-political dynamics. Despite having its own legislative assembly and government, POJK's political autonomy is limited, with ultimate authority resting with Islamabad. This lack of genuine self-governance has led to frustrations among the local populace, who feel marginalized and disenfranchised.
Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin on May 16 participated in an opening ceremony marking China-Russia Culture Year and a gala concert celebrating the 75th anniversary of China-Russia diplomatic relations in Beijing. Beijing residents expressed mixed opinions about Russian President Vladimir Putin's state visit to the Chinese capital city on Thursday.
主要是我对于他访华，我这次不太了解，但是我们自己平时私下里聊的，就觉得中国外交关系现在不好，就跟俄罗斯走得很近，然后呢，也不觉得是一个很好的事儿。为什么？就因为觉得跟那个乌克兰战争，你到底是站在哪一边嘛？对。
Putin's visit came weeks after US Secretary of State Antony Blinken flew into China to raise concerns about what he said was China's support for Russia's military. Blinken had said that Washington would continue to impose sanctions on Chinese companies supplying Russia's defense sector. According to the preliminary gross domestic product data released by Japan's Cabinet Office, the country's economy contracted in the first quarter, squeezed by weaker consumption and external demand. According to the data, Japan's economy shrank 2% annualized in January to March from the prior quarter. Downwardly revised data showed GDP barely grew in the fourth quarter. The Bank of Japan raised interest rates in March for the first time since 2007 in a landmark shift away from negative rates, but the central bank is expected to go slow in unwinding easy money conditions given a fragile economy. Bhutan inaugurated a brand new training pool in Thimphu on May 15, which World Aquatics said is one of the highest pools of its kind in the world. The pool and training facility sits high in the mountains at the impressive altitude of 8,200 feet. World Aquatics said New Thimphu Aquatic Center houses the Kingdom of Bhutan's first competition swimming pool. The facility will allow elite swimmers to train in their own country and will also serve as a training ground for the local community. The Bhutan Aquatics Federation partnered with World Athletics to make the pool a reality in part of a World Aquatics initiative known as Pools for All.
Today, blue pottery continues to be cherished for its beauty and craftsmanship, serving as a testament to the rich artistic heritage of the regions where it thrives. The beauty of blue pottery lies in its exquisite craftsmanship and captivating designs. While talking about blue pottery, it would be dishonest to omit Jaipur-based Leela Baudia's name. Neerja International, under her leadership, has not only preserved the art form but also expanded its reach, benefiting countless craftsmen and their families. It's remarkable how her vision and dedication have resulted in such a rich legacy of unique designs and products. Take a look.
Blue pottery usually depicts blue ceramic designs, but in Jaipur-based Neerja International, the art is not limited to just one color. By incorporating a variety of colors like yellow, green and others, the founder of the company, Leela Bordia, has infused creativity and innovation into the craft. Her innovative approach allows for a broader range of designs and appeals to a more diverse audience who might prefer different color palettes in their decor. It's a beautiful way to blend tradition with contemporary tastes and preferences. Leela's Neerja International not only showcases the beauty of Indian craftsmanship but also demonstrates the power of innovation in keeping traditions relevant and alive. Moreover, by supporting the livelihoods of craftsmen in multiple villages and fostering collaboration with various industries, Neerja International is not only preserving the art of blue pottery but also contributing to the economic development of the region.
आज 3 से 4 गांव हैं, 5 से 600 जने इसमें जुड़े हुए हैं और सिर्फ इसी को बनाए क्योंकि इसके बाई प्रोडक्ट में भी जुड़े हुए हैं, तो वो हमारे लिए बहुत ज़रूरी हो गया है कि हम ब्लू पॉटरी बना रहे हैं पर वुड के साथ हमने इसको मैच किया, आयरन के साथ मैच किया। तो आप ये सोचिए, वुड वाले भी, आयरन वाले भी, इवन गोल्ड एंड सिल्वर के साथ और डायमंड के साथ भी इसको जोड़ने लगे। तो हर तबके के लोग आज इस क्राफ्ट के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि क्राफ्ट में अगर यूटिलिटी आइटम हम बनाते हैं और अपनी पहचान बनाने के लिए काम करते रहते हैं तो मेरे को नहीं लगता कि हमको पीछे मुड़ के देखने की ज़रूरत है। हमारा एक्सपोर्ट और लोकल बराबर आ गया है, इसका मतलब हम अपने क्राफ्ट को पहचानने लगे हैं।
Leela Bordia's journey with Neerja International is a testament to her vision, determination and ability to inspire others. Starting with a few craftspeople in 1980, she embarked on a path that would transform the landscape of blue pottery. Despite the initial challenges, she persisted, fueled by the belief of her craftsmen and her unwavering vision. The numerous accolades and awards that have adorned her office over the years serves as a evidence of her excellence and recognition. Leela also authored a book titled Jaipur Blue Pottery, a Tribute, which offers a detailed exploration of the captivating art of blue pottery. Leela's achievements are so significant that she is now primarily recognized by her company's name.
खुशी तो ये है कि मेरा नाम बदल के मेरी कंपनी का नाम मेरा नाम कर दिया है कि नीरजा, मतलब कोई नहीं, अगर मैं कहीं जाके बोलती हूँ मैं लीला बोडिया हूँ तो वो कहते हैं लीला बोडिया, और मैं कहती हूँ कि नीरजा पॉटरी, बोलते अच्छा हाँ हम जान गए। तो ये एक वो है कि लोग बाग मेरे क्राफ्ट से मुझे पहचानते हैं, तो इससे बड़ी खुशी और क्या हो सकती है।
Indian art forms are not just relics of the past, but living traditions that continue to inspire and enrich our lives. While encouraging people to value and support artisans and craftsmen who keep these traditions alive, Leela emphasizes the importance of preserving and celebrating India's rich cultural heritage. Leela Bordia's journey exemplifies the power of entrepreneurship to create positive social change and uphold traditions. By weaving together business acumen with a strong sense of community and cultural pride, Cambodia has created a legacy that extends far beyond the product she sells.
Let's move to Nepal, where the annual procession of Lord Rato Machindranath drew crowds of devotees, marking the beginning of a month-long journey for the red god of rains and harvest. Constructed without nails or metallurgy, the towering chariot represents centuries-old traditions of the Neva community. As the procession unfolds, it symbolizes prosperity, agricultural abundance, and an enduring spirit of collective effort and faith, underscoring the rich cultural heritage of Nepal.
On May 9th, a sea of devotees thronged the ancient city of Lalitpur in Nepal to witness the ascension of Lord Rato Machindranath, or the red god of rains and harvest, on a chariot. The placement of the red god's idol on the 32-foot sky-scraping chariot by the priests marked the beginning of a month-long journey, the longest-running chariot procession in the country. Traditionally, members of the Newar community build this lofty chariot using rope, rattan and wood. The structure is made without any nails or metallurgy. The annual festival is scheduled as per the lunar calendar, and locals believe that the residents of the Bhaktapur city can pull on the chariot to their place and keep the god for 6 months if the procession fails to take place before Dashin, a major fortnight festival observed in Nepal during the month of October.
यो मेन त अब काठ र अब काठ भयो गोलो बेड भयो बेड यो बेड भयो अनि डोरीले चाहिँ बनाइन्छ यो काठ चाहिँ अब बारेले चाहिँ यो काठ सम्पूर्ण काठ भन्ने हुन्छ उनीहरूले सम्पूर्ण काठ भन्नापछि यो लाम काठ चाहिँ त्यहाँ राखिदिए सोरो काठ यो हाम्रो यो जङ्गलले पर्छ अनि याखखसम्म चाहिँ बारेले राख्ने त्यसको एक तल थप्नु पर्छ त्यो चाहिँ जङ्गलले थप्दिए अनि उहाँहरू याखख देखेपछि हामीले एक तल थपेर त्यसमा चाहिँ गलैँची भन्ने हुन्छ त्यो चुच्चो देख्नु भएको नि तपाईँले त्यो चुच्चो चाहिँ हामीले राख्ने हो.
The chariot procession commemorating the arrival of Bungadaya in Nepal and the relief from a severe drought began during the reign of King Narendra Deva. This procession is one of the longest running chariot processions in Nepal. Rato Machindranath holds significance as a symbol of prosperity, agriculture and rain. Overall, it's a beautiful example of how rituals and traditions continue to thrive, connecting communities to their cultural heritage while also serving as a reminder of the importance of collective effort and faith. The belief associated with the festival, such as the importance of the procession taking place before the Dashan festival, adds to its spiritual significance.
The annual procession is a cherished event that brings together devotees from far and wide. And with that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.